Amazing transformation. How a shy librarian saved a millionaire's crying daughter on a plane. Emma stared at the towering shelves lined with classic literature, each spine offering an escape she often yearned for. In the heart of New York City, a city that thrummed with the pulse of ambition and grandeur, she felt like a ghost. The library was her sanctuary, the quiet warping the chaos of life outside. But even among dusty tomes, a profound loneliness clung to her like a shadow, as she disappeared into an existence not meant for the spotlight. She whispered words of wisdom to patrons seeking solace in novels, but found it hard to acknowledge her own need for connection. On a chaotic afternoon, just as the crisp autumn breeze hinted at change, Emma faced an unexpected event, a flight delay that thrust her onto a packed plane headed to San Francisco. Sitting squeezed between a window and an impeccably dressed man, she felt adrenaline and anxiety swirl through her. The man, Mark, radiated a weighty presence, his thoughts tense and distant. He hardly glanced her way. It didn't take long for a sound to pierce the cabin noise. His daughter Lily was sobbing softly, her fragility evident even from across the aisle. Emma's heart tugged at the sight of the 12-year-old. Was Lily merely a reflection of the relentless chase for success that often echoed through the library's walls? She could almost feel the heavy expectations suffocating the girl, much like her own fears gnawed at her insides. What if I could reach her? Emma pondered, the ripple of possibility running through her. The notion ignited something inside her. Perhaps her own voice had the power to cut through the haze of isolation. A rush of resolve surged as she turned, still hesitant, her voice trembling. It's okay to cry, you know. Sometimes it feels like the world wants us to be more, but we can only be ourselves. Even as she spoke, guilt seeped in, the kind that cloaked her in self-doubt. Was she intruding? Her every instinct urged retreat, but a larger yearning pushed her forward. The child's tear-streaked face, so raw and vulnerable, mirrored the echoes of her own childhood dreams that had faded under a mountain of shoulds. For just a moment, Lily's sobs ceased. A flicker of recognition sparked in her eyes as Emma recounted stories of escaping reality through books, exploring the realms where authenticity mattered more than prestige. But Mark remained an island, the tension between him and Lily, palpable. Emma could almost feel the weight of their unresolved struggles hovering in the cramped space. It was as though she had become the reluctant bridge, but with every word, doubt crested within her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the conversation unfolded, Emma's heartbeat quickened, a pulse of urgency igniting her instincts. She sensed the fragile connection between the father and daughter, the net of expectations binding them tighter with every passing second. Could she inspire Lily toward her own ambitions or end up shattering what little bond they had? The turbulence outside matched the turmoil brewing within her. Would she dare to disrupt their compartmentalized lives, instigating an awareness that could reshape everything? As storm clouds gathered outside their window, Emma felt an unsettling question rise. Would she possess the courage to confront her own shadows, or would she remain just a voice drowned in the noise of ambition? With their lives intertwining against the backdrop of uncertainty, the very fabric of what she had dared to muster hung on the brink. Would this moment transform everything for them all, or would their vulnerabilities falter in the storm? Emma's words hung in the air, fragile yet charged with unspoken understanding. The aircraft jolted gently, mimicking the tumult of emotions swirling in her mind. Each heartbeat echoed her determination, and yet, doubt began to claw at her resolve. She wondered if she had overstepped, if she had intruded on an intimate moment between father and daughter. But the flicker of hope in Lily's eyes urged her on. Sometimes, Emma continued, searching for the right words, it feels easier to hide our feelings. But you have so much to offer, just as you are. She dared to meet Mark's gaze, searching for acknowledgement, a sign that her intervention was welcomed. Instead, he stared at the seat back in front of him, his jaw clenching slightly. Was he angry, or was he simply lost in his own world? As she steeled herself to say more, Emma felt an unexpected wave of empowerment cascade through her. Maybe her place wasn't merely as an observer clad in silence. Maybe her voice, gentle yet firm, had the potential to spark a change in not only Lily but herself as well. This realization was electrifying. Each word she spoke became a small victory against her own fears. "Lily, I can see you're brave," Emma said, focusing entirely on the girl. "Bravery isn't always about big gestures. It's about being true to yourself, about acknowledging who you are and how you feel. Can you tell me what's bothering you?" Lily shifted in her seat, and for a fleeting moment Emma caught a glimpse of vulnerability beneath her strained composure. "I'm scared," she whispered, her voice barely rising above the engine's rumble. "Everyone expects me to be perfect. I don't think I can." The confession struck Emma like a jolt of electricity. She remembered being just like Lily, crushed beneath the weight of expectations, constantly comparing herself to others, retreating into the safety of books. It was then she resolved to push forward, not just for Lily, but for herself. "I know it's hard," Emma replied, her voice steady and warm. "But perfection isn't real. Everyone struggles, even adults." She glanced momentarily at Mark, her heart racing at the risk this conversation might present to them all. His face was unreadable, which made her pulse quicken. "It's okay to feel like you're not enough. In fact, acknowledging those feelings means you're brave." Mark finally looked at her, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. "And you know that how?" he asked, his voice low and tinged with disbelief. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the storm outside mixing with hers. "I was once that girl," she admitted, "and I still struggle with it now." Tension crackled in the cramped space of the plane. Mark's expression shifted from skepticism to something deeper, perhaps a hint of understanding. She held his gaze, feeling the need to fill the silence with honesty. "Sometimes," she said, her voice unwavering, "we need someone to remind us that it's okay to not have everything figured out." As Lily slowly nodded, Emma's heart surged with triumph. Reaching beyond her timid existence, she felt a dawning clarity. This wasn't just about saving a crying daughter. It was about reclaiming her voice, stepping out of her own shadow. There was power in vulnerability, and perhaps this was the transformative moment she had been seeking. But as the plane suddenly shifted, turbulence rocked their small world again, both physically and emotionally. Mark's glance darted toward the aisle, and Emma sensed the weight of his unspoken fears looming. She had cracked open a door, but would they step through it together? Or would her attempt at connection dissolve in the fog of anxiety? Determination flooded her with renewed vigor as she prepared to confront whatever resided on the other side of that door. Would she dare navigate through their uncharted emotions, fortifying her fragile newfound courage against the swirling storms overhead? "Lily," Emma said, heart pounding in her chest, "why don't we talk about our dreams? It might help." And as she initiated this bold plunge into deeper waters, both she and Mark contemplated the frontier of fear and hope that lay untraveled before them. Would they emerge transformed, or were dark clouds to set their dreams adrift once more? As Emma spoke the words, she felt the trembling tension ease slightly between them, a shimmering thread of connection threading through the acknowledged vulnerability. The plane dropped momentarily, a reminder that they were still suspended in an environment defying the ordinary. But in that chaos, Emma's focus shifted toward their inner emotional landscape, compelling her to forge ahead. "Lily," Emma continued, her voice gentle yet insistent, "what do you dream of doing? What excites you?" The question hung in the air like a delicate invitation, one that she hoped wouldn't be lost amid the shifting clouds of anxiety. The girl hesitated, staring down at her hands as if the answer might be hidden in the creases of her palms. Emma remembered that sensation, the well of dreams quavering underneath the weight of self-doubt. I like art," Lily whispered, peeking sideways at her father, perhaps gauging his reaction. Emma's gaze followed hers instinctively to Mark, who still remained partially withdrawn, lost in his thoughts. "Art?" Emma prodded gently. "What kind of art?" Lily's eyes brightened, reversing the pallor of sadness that had clouded her face moments before. "Painting, but people say it's impractical." The word impractical fell from her lips with a heaviness that hinted at years of cynicism. "Is that what you want to pursue?" Emma asked, surprising herself with how invested she had become. Here was a girl bursting with potential, stifled by expectations, and all Emma wanted was to unearth that spark. Lily nodded hesitantly. "But my dad wants me to go into business." Emma's heart lurched as she glanced at Mark, who had shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Mark, tell me, what do you think about Lily's passion?" she ventured, feeling the urgency pulsating through the confines of the plane. He stared at the seatback again, but this time something in his posture told a different story. "Art won't pay the bills," he murmured, his words clipped and edged with concern. "But what if it could?" Emma countered, daring to push against the tide. "There are successful artists out there. Pursuing what you love can lead to unimaginable places." Mark's brows furrowed as he wrestled with her perspective. She sensed a paradox within him, the desire to protect Lily from disappointment colliding with the innate wish to see her flourish. "Is being successful more important than being happy?" she asked, the question reverberating in the confined space. Mark's eyes flared with challenge, possessiveness of his responsibilities apparent. "Success is security," he replied, his voice rising slightly. "How can she thrive in a world where uncertainty lurks everywhere?" Emma felt her heart race. This moment was pivotal. She had entered a psychological battlefield with Mark's fears and expectations on one side, and the yearning for autonomy on the other. "But what if uncertainty is part of growth?" Emma pressed. "Art is about exploration. It's not just a career, it's a way of connecting with the world." The turbulence rattled through the aircraft, mirroring the storm brewing amongst them. Could Mark be convinced to embrace the fluidity of dreams versus rigid expectations? Could Lily feel seen and supported instead of burdened by expectations? Each shifted gaze lingered longer than normal, as if they were all standing on the edge of a precipice, teetering between the safety of the known and the allure of uncharted territory. Emma felt her pulse quicken. This exchange could not only define Lily's path, but also ignite a transformative journey for her and Mark. The plane steadied, but Emma's mind felt alight with possibilities, fueled by the prospect of breaking through the barriers that held them captive. "Mark," she said, voice steady, "maybe it's time we examined what success really means to you and Lily. Are you ready to discuss it?" The question hung heavily, a declaration of fortitude, ready to plunge them into yet deeper waters. Would they dare to redefine their understanding of life and happiness together, or retreat to the familiar safety of expectation? The moment loomed, promising the potential for all their lives to change. But would they seize it? Mark's gaze hardened, caught in the tension of challenge and vulnerability. The click of his seatbelt echoed in the small cabin, a sharp reminder of their confined surroundings and the weight of their shared experiences. What could he say to express his fears without sounding like an overbearing father? Emma could almost see the gears turning in Mark's mind, wrestling with his deeply ingrained sense of responsibility. "Success is more than just a paycheck," Emma insisted, leaning forward slightly, her voice measured but impassioned. "It's fulfillment. It's the courage to pursue what you love, even if it feels risky." Lily's hopeful expression faltered as she looked between her father and Emma. A soft sigh slipped from Mark's lips, and Emma caught a fleeting moment of uncertainty on his face. The turbulence seemed to whisper a message of change, and the weight of their conversation ignited an urgency within her. "Lily, what if you could start small? Pursue art part-time while exploring business?" Emma proposed, her mind racing ahead. "You could combine both worlds. Think outside the box. Art can be a business, but it starts with a passion." Lily's eyes brightened, and her momentary enthusiasm tugged at Emma's heart. "You really think so?" she asked, voice a tremor of hope. Before Emma could reply, Mark's caution set in again. But then she might spread herself too thin. High school is already challenging enough. It's about laying a foundation for her future. The defensive tone in his voice revealed more than just his concern. It spoke of his own unfulfilled dreams and battles with self-doubt. Emma lifted her chin, feeling the weight of this conversation settling heavily on her. But if she can cultivate her creativity now, it can empower her to face whatever challenges lie ahead. As she spoke, she realized the echo of her own adolescence flickered in the wings of Lily's story. A desire to pursue dance stifled under the weight of practicality. "Mark, have you ever thought about what you wanted to do beyond business?" The question slid out before she could stop it, the wind carrying it like a leaf on a stream. Silence enveloped them, and she could see the subtle shift in his demeanor, a crack in the armor he wore. His defenses bristled, but she sensed a glimmer of introspection. "That's not the point," he replied, the tremor in his voice betraying uncertainty. "It is, though," Emma countered softly. "Every parent wants a better life for their child than they had. But what if part of that better life means allowing her to explore passions and find joy? What if, in letting her be who she wants to be, you find freedom in that too?" Mark tightened his jaw, clearly grappling with her words. The plane hit a patch of turbulence that jolted them slightly, a physical manifestation of the emotional roller coaster they were navigating. Maybe I'm scared," he finally admitted, voice low. "Scared of what the future holds. If she fails at this, what does it mean for her?" Emma observed his vulnerability with a mixture of empathy and determination. "But what if she doesn't? As parents, we often forget that failure can offer invaluable lessons. You have a choice here, to nurture her ambitions and embrace the uncertain path together. Are you willing to risk that?" Mark closed his eyes for a fleeting moment, his defensiveness cracking further. In that silence, Emma saw the potential for transformation, an evolution not just for Lily, but for Mark as well. As the clouds parted outside, light streaming through the cabin windows, Emma felt a storm of possibilities brewing within. Could they pivot this moment into something greater? "Lily," Emma said gently, "this is your moment. What do you want us to help you create?" When Mark finally opened his eyes, they reflected the dawning realization that perhaps the definition of success could be rewritten. But just as she felt hope flickering like a candle flame, a loud ping from the cockpit interrupted. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing an impending storm ahead. Emma felt the anxiety spike again. Would their conversation withstand the turbulence, or would it unravel like a tenuous thread in a sudden downpour? The stakes had never felt higher. As the storm approached, Emma's heart raced, not just from the sudden shift in the atmosphere, but from the realization that they were all teetering on the edge of a critical juncture. Mark's admission of fear hung heavily between them, a tangible barrier. He was a man wavering between providing safety and embracing risk, his daughter's future mingling with his own past disappointments. "Lily," she said again, her voice steadying in the chaos that surrounded them. "What do you feel when you think about pursuing art?" The question hung in the air, and Lily's brow furrowed in concentration. In that confined space, Emma witnessed the flicker of deep emotions, fear, excitement, and an urgent desire to pursue something real. It ignited a spark in Emma. She understood this moment held more than conversation. It held the potential for profound change. "I feel like I could be free, like I could create something that means something to me," Lily whispered, her eyes widening with possibility. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, torn between wanting to protect Lily and recognizing the truth in her words. Emma sensed the battle he was waging within himself. They were navigating uncharted territory, a storm both literal and metaphorical. She wanted him to embrace it. "Lily, what if you shared that freedom with your father? Maybe you could create something together," Emma suggested, her mind already spinning possibilities. "What if your art could be paired with the business side? I've seen you paint. You have so much potential." As Lily's thoughtful gaze turned toward Mark, she could see the hope blooming in her eyes. The tension in the cabin evoked an electric undercurrent, turning turmoil into transformation. Emma watched as Mark wrestled with his own insecurities, his protective instincts grappling with the inevitability of change. "Mark," she interjected before he could retreat back behind his walls, "what if being there for Lily meant being open to your own vulnerability as well? What if this is the chance to take a step together instead of apart?" "A chance?" Mark's voice cracked slightly. "What if I'm not the parent she needs? What if I do the wrong thing?" Emma leaned forward, emboldened. "Then you learn just as she would. The only wrong move is not trying at all. Isn't that what you've taught her? The essence of business is risk." Mark opened his mouth as if to argue, but he faltered, the weight of reality washing over him. There was a moment, a split second of reckoning where the gravity of Emma's words seemed to shift the air around them. It was clear that something within him was ready to break free. Lily took a deep breath, her face brightening with newfound courage. "Dad, can we really try? I mean, not hide away from what we love?" Caught between his daughter's enthusiasm and the echo of Emma's encouragement, Mark's eyes filled with an incomprehensible swirl of emotion. The facade of control cracked under the strain, revealing a man who yearned for connection and understanding. Emma's heart raced as she carefully unfolded her next thoughts. "Maybe you both can design a project that embodies both your strengths, something that synergizes your worlds, art and business. It's not about perfection, it's about the journey of discovery together." The plane jolted again, the thunder rumbling through the cabin mirroring their emotional turbulence. Yet amidst it all she saw light crack through Mark's guarded demeanor. They were on the brink of a revelation, an intersection of uncharted possibilities that could redefine their relationship. As Mark looked directly at Lily, his expression softened. In that charged moment, Emma realized they were all standing on the precipice of something remarkable, a profound leap of faith. But then the plane trembled more violently, the reality of the storm pressing down upon them again. Emma felt a wave of anxiety crash over her. Would their moment of vulnerability hold strong against the unexpected turmoil? The longing for connection surged in her throat, igniting a fire that demanded action. "Mark," she breathed, sensing the urgency, "what if this storm is your catalyst? What if it pushes you to embrace the very act of creation together?" The storm was just beginning, but so was their journey. Would they seize it or let it unravel? Emma felt the weight of the moment shift, the air electrified with possibilities yet clouded by doubt. As the turbulence rocked the plane, she sensed that the stakes were higher than she had initially perceived. This was more than just a conversation. It was about potential futures, rooted in both fear and courage. Mark's brow furrowed deeper, and Emma could see the gears turning in his mind. Was he grappling with a personal struggle, one that perhaps paralleled Lily's artistic yearnings? The sound of thunder outside crashed against her thoughts, echoing the tempest raging in their hearts. She needed to pierce the veil of his apprehension. "Mark," she began, her voice firm but nurturing, "what if you took a leap of faith not just for Lily but for yourself? There's a creative spark in you too. You just haven't allowed it to breathe." His eyes flickered with uncertainty, revealing glimpses of a man confined by expectations, perhaps even his own. "I've built my life around control, Emma. The thought of diving into something unknown terrifies me." Emma understood that fear. It had its roots in ambition and survival. Yet she also knew that every venture required some level of risk. "But think about this," she pressed on. "What if your willingness to dive into this unknown realm opens new facets of yourself? This is not just about Lily's art, it's about your journey as well." Her words hung in the air, an invitation to shed the weight of his past failures and try, however imperfectly. She watched as Mark wrestled with the prospect, his internal struggle becoming visible on his face. The instinct to shield his daughter clashed against a yearning to connect, to be more than just a provider. "Maybe I should," he murmured. Yet she sensed the hesitation still anchored to his heart. The sound of another jolt from the plane heightened the urgency. This was a critical juncture that would define them all. "Every time we step into the unknown, we emerge different," Emma stated, her tone soothing but insistent. What if exploration leads you to discover a side of yourself that you never knew existed? Isn't life about evolution? A thoughtful silence fell. Lily was watching her father, wide-eyed with hope. Emma could almost see the walls crumbling between Mark and the vibrant world he'd hidden from, which, in turn, could illuminate the vibrant life that awaited Lily. Perhaps we can blend your world and mine, Mark finally suggested, his voice gaining strength. I've seen the impact art can have in marketing, in storytelling. Maybe we can create something that speaks to both of our strengths. A wave of relief washed over Emma. This was a step, an acknowledgement of the potential convergence of their paths. Yes, what if you both begin by exploring what story you want to tell? It could be anything, a theme, an emotion, the essence of who you are. Lily's eyes sparkled as she interjected, "We could explore feelings, Dad. What if we expressed love through art? Your business connections and my creations could showcase that." Mark nodded, visibly shaken but emboldened by the emerging partnership. Emma felt that the storm outside paled in comparison to the tempest of revelations churning within them. This moment was filled with promise, yet beneath the surface lurked the truth. They had to navigate the debris left by their fears. As they unified their dreams amid the chaos of the storm, Emma felt a stirring of empowerment within herself. Supporting this father-daughter duo meant confronting her own intuitive fears as well. Networking with unresolved ambitions had left her stagnating for years, but Mark and Lily were inviting her to uncover new pathways, laying the foundation for mutual growth. Just then the plane trembled violently, a fresh bout of turbulence shaking all three of them from their introspection. Emma's heart raced at the realization that their emotional journey was entwined with the unpredictable storm. They were all at threshold, and there was no turning back. "Mark, Lily," she said, her voice steadying once more amidst the chaos. "The storm may push us, but let's use that energy to fuel our discovery. We can't only survive. We must thrive." With each jolt, the three of them shared an unspoken understanding. This was the beginning of their transformative journey, laden with possibilities and the promise of self-discovery. As the plane roared through the storm, a sense of urgency punctuated their resolve. But as another crack of thunder rattled the cabin, Emma felt a sinking sensation. Would the outside turmoil threaten the fragile bond they were beginning to forge? The roar of thunder seemed to resonate within Emma, a physical reminder of the maelstrom swirling both outside and within their hearts. Each violent shake of the plane felt like a bell tolling for change. Yet, amid the chaos, there emerged a flicker of clarity. This moment wasn't just about the three of them. It was a reckoning of identities, an urgent call to evolve. As the plane steadied, Emma took a deep breath, fortifying herself for the task that lay ahead. She knew they were about to transcend mere intention. It was time to actualize their shared vision. The thought of facilitating Mark's journey alongside Lily's blossoming creativity was empowering. Yet the shadow of her own hesitations loomed larger than ever. She felt the internal quagmire of fear, the kind that comes with breaking free from the safety of routine. "All right," Emma said, her gaze locking onto Mark and Lily. "Let's come up with a plan. This will require commitment and a clear understanding of what we want to express." Mark's face held a mix of worry and determination. "What do you suggest?" Emma's mind raced, the potential ideas colliding like the storm outside. "Let's start with brainstorming. What emotions tie us together?" She could see the glint of hope in Lily's eyes and the cautious shift in Mark's expression. They were teetering on the precipice of something transformative, and her role was to shepherd them through it. "Joy, fear, love," Mark volunteered, his voice gaining steadiness as he spoke those words. "Yes, and they don't have to be perfect," she urged. "Think about how these emotions have shaped who we are. Each one holds a story waiting to be told." As they ventured into the depths of their feelings, something remarkable began to unfold. Emma's confidence grew as she witnessed Mark and Lily unravel their thoughts, weaving together a narrative that spoke not only to them, but to those around them. There was vulnerability in sharing, raw and illuminating. Mark's fragility, rooted in his desire to protect, began to dissolve. Lily's uninhibited imagination ignited passion in him, a liberation Emma hadn't anticipated. Yet even as their ideas gained form, Emma felt her own dreams gnawing at her quietly. Would this project be a catalyst for her too? Would she single-handedly guide Mark and Lily, only to remain a spectator of her own desires? These persistent thoughts circled her mind like the storm outside, reminding her of her own uncharted territory. "Why don't we think of a title?" Lily chirped, her enthusiasm revitalizing the atmosphere. "Something to encapsulate our theme." "The power of connection," Mark proposed tentatively, still wrestling with the grasp of his insecurities. "No, let's be bolder. How about the art of fearless love?" Emma suggested, surprising even herself. She realized that naming the project spurred her to claim ownership over the journey, not just for them but for herself. Mark raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "It's daring, but it communicates exactly what we want to explore." Lily clapped her hands. "I love it. It feels like freedom." The vibrancy of their exchange grew, illuminating every corner of the cabin. Emma felt a rush of exhilaration. This was more than a mere collaboration. It mirrored her own need for exploration and creativity, a journal of shared experiences that would empower them all. Stepping beyond the traditional confines placed upon her, she felt the tender threads of her aspirations coalesce in this very moment. But just as synergy blossomed, the plane shuddered violently again, snapping Emma back to the reality outside. The fear returned, pressing against her chest. What if the outcomes of this collaboration fell flat, or worse, took them backward? "What if we fail?" she questioned, her voice trembling amid the chaos. Mark's resolve surged at her words. "What if we don't? We can't allow the fear of failure to stifle our journey. We owe it to ourselves to try." In that moment of clarity, Emma sensed the call to action, a challenge not just for Mark and Lily but for herself to seek her true creative potential. The thunder roared outside, a symphony of urgency intertwining with their convictions. "Let's show ourselves what we're capable of." Emma's heart raced, energized by both potential and an unsettling fear of what lay ahead. The storm outside no longer felt threatening but invigorating, a reflection of the turbulence she was ready to embrace. Together they were crossing the threshold into uncharted territory. Emma gazed at the others, realizing that this journey would demand not only exploration, but also confrontation of their innate fears and doubts. The path ahead shimmered with uncertainty and possibility. As the aircraft soared through the storm, a tantalizing question loomed. Could they transform this fearful leap into something extraordinary? The skies had opened, but what awaited them on the other side? The rumble of the plane reverberated again as Emma steeled herself, acknowledging the inner tremors that mirrored the storm outside. They were no longer just a trio of individuals grappling with their fears. They had become a collective force, ignited by shared aspiration. Yet with every thunderous pop, a deeper truth settled uncomfortably in her gut. This was about more than just supporting Mark and Lily. It was about forging her own path forward. Emma glanced at Mark and Lily, who were immersed in their discussion of themes and emotions. Their enthusiasm bubbled, offering her a momentary refuge. But beneath the surface, the question gnawed at her. How would she rise to meet this challenge? Emma had spent years weaving between the constraints of her librarian identity and the whispers of a creative soul longing to be heard. The opportunity to catalyze a transformative journey for them provoked both awe and anxiety. "What if we leaned into the fear aspect more?" Lily suggested, her voice bursting with excitement. "We could explore vulnerability but also strength, how fear can be both a barrier and a bridge." Mark nodded, clearly contemplating the direction. "That's true. Fear doesn't have to be paralyzing. It can push us forward, reveal our resilience." Emma's heart began to race as those words struck a chord. She recognized that their discussion mirrored her internal struggle. Could it be that her own fear was precisely what would propel her towards that elusive spark of creativity? For too long, she'd hidden behind her responsibilities, her role as a facilitator overshadowing her desire to create. "Let's dig deeper," she interjected, her voice firm yet warm. "What fears specifically hold us back? For me, I think it has always been the fear of judgment. The fear that my ideas are not worth sharing, that I'm not capable of achieving greatness." The confessions hung in the air, palpable and weighted. Emma felt the power of vulnerability wash over them, pulling them closer together. Mark's brow furrowed as he shared, "I fear failure every day. What if I'm not enough to help my daughter? What if I can't embrace my creative side?" Each revelation seemed to pull Emma more into a whirlpool of self-reflection. Just by voicing her insecurities, the tidal waves of doubt began to recede. She realized that she wasn't alone. They were all grappling with fear's suffocating grip. If they could confront these shadows, maybe they could emerge into the light of their true selves. The turbulent air began to settle, mirroring the shift within Emma. "We can transform this fear into art," she encouraged. "Let's express how we've been held back and what we want to overcome." The thought ignited something within her, a surge of creative energy that felt foreign, yet exhilarating. As brainstorming progressed, Emma leaned more into her instincts, allowing the ideas to flow. She captured fleeting thoughts and building blocks of a narrative they could craft together, not just as collaborators but as co-creators. The focus drifted from external pressures to internal transformations. Each stroke of realization built upon the last. This was an opportunity to write their stories, to shape their paths in a way that had always eluded her. The plane suddenly lurched again, but this time Emma remained steady, grounding herself in newfound clarity. The metaphorical storm had settled, but the real work was just beginning. "Can we explore the idea of confronting our fears through the art we create?" she asked, grateful for the kinship forged in such a transient space. Lily's eyes sparkled with motivation. "Absolutely. Let's channel our fears, but let's also depict our triumphs. We can show everyone that fear can evolve into courage." Emma felt a burgeoning tenacity rising within her. This was not just about crafting a project. It was about sculpting identities, merging past traumas with future aspirations. They were about to build something extraordinary, not just for their audience, but for themselves. But just as the pathway of possibilities opened before them, the unpredictability of life loomed once more. Would the synergy they'd cultivated hold true once they reached solid ground? The taste of uncertainty mixed with anticipation hung heavy in the air. As the plane leveled off, Emma's heart raced with both trepidation and excitement. They were on the brink of discovery, and the time had come for her not just to guide, but to actively engage in her transformation. The next segment awaited her with both dread and exuberance. The question loomed, could she truly face the challenges ahead as an equal participant in this creative endeavor? Emma felt a shift deep within as the plane stabilized and the storm outside receded into memory. The fleeting moments of vulnerability shared among her, Mark, and Lily settled into a cacophony of potential. She realized that the journey of creative expression would not merely be an act of collaboration, it would redefine her. The gravity of that realization pulled her forward, urging her to delve into her own narrative while fostering theirs. Taking a deep breath, Emma approached the idea of confronting fear with purpose. Instead of fleeing from her insecurities, she envisioned them as the backdrop of their artistic endeavor. The notion of fear, as both an anchor and a sail, began to crystallize in her mind. What if they crafted an immersive narrative exploring this duality? Could they develop a performance that not only witnessed their struggles but bore witness to their shared resilience? She needed to articulate her vision. Let's create a series of sketches that depict not just our fears but our process of overcoming them, she suggested, her voice gaining strength. We can symbolize fear through different characters or elements, then show how each of us confronts that fear, what actions we take, what discoveries we make along the way. I'd like to weave in personal reflections that I won't just observe but also inhabit. Mark's eyes brightened as he absorbed her words. That sounds incredible. Each character could encapsulate a specific fear we discussed, a personification of what holds us back. Lily was nodding eagerly. And we could incorporate poetry or monologues that reveal our vulnerabilities. We'd need to be raw and honest, allowing ourselves to become exposed in front of one another. Emma felt a swell of exhilaration at the prospect. This was hers, a manifestation of her thoughts, her stake in their unfolding tale. Yet, as she contributed her thoughts, a troubling shadow of self-doubt crept back in. Could her insights really carry weight alongside Mark and Lily's passionate expressions? Each time she visualized the performance, the specter of judgment crept closer. What if her inputs were not sufficient? She fought against these encroaching insecurities. If she could encourage openness from Mark and Lily, why not relinquish her own criticism? The emotional release they'd shared had illuminated their fears, but it was now time to transform those confessions into something tactile, something meaningful. Let's explore our characters in depth, Emma proposed. We should spend some time alone brainstorming our individual arcs, who we are, what fears we embody, and how we evolve throughout the narrative. This could bring dimensions to our representations. As those words left her mouth, Emma felt a surge of ownership wash over her. The creative process no longer felt foreign or just a supporting act. It was hers to shape, and she was ready to wield that power. Once they agreed on a timeline, Emma replaced the self-doubt in her mind with a strategy. Each day leading up to their destination, she would set aside time to explore the depths of her character's journey, not just through writing, but also by tapping into her own experiences. There had to be layers she hadn't yet explored. If she was a librarian, then she also had a narrative waiting to be unearthed. As the minutes flew by, they began sketching out fantastical ideas, each contribution building onto the last, while Emma's excitement entwined with trepidation. In that moment, she saw glimmers of herself intertwining with her friends, revealing the core of their intertwining narratives. The air buzzed with anticipation, but right beside that spark flickered the apprehension of venturing into uncharted territory. Would she be able to embrace this new identity and lay bare her truths without retreating back into the shadows? The continued exploration of her creative voice felt like a leap off a cliff, both exhilarating and terrifying. As the plane began its descent, Emma realized that the real challenge lay ahead, not merely in the execution of their art, but in her transformation. What part of herself would she unearth along the way? And could she forge a new legacy, not only through her role as a librarian but as an artist who dared to confront her innermost fears? The moment of truth was dawning, and the horizon ahead shimmered with possibility. Emma could feel the pulse of change quickening within her, but could she truly embrace it? As the ground rushed up to meet them, an unsettling thrill coursed through her veins, awakening the question, who would emerge on the other side? As the plane touched down, Emma felt the vibrations resonate deep within her, much like the emotional waves traveling through her collective journey with Mark and Lily. In that moment, she was acutely aware of the literal landing that signified not only the conclusion of a flight, but an evolution of their lives intertwined with newfound understanding and purpose. They had navigated through emotional turbulence, finally approaching solid ground, and Emma was committed to walking with them into this next chapter. As they disembarked and stepped into the bustling airport terminal, Emma felt a charge of electricity radiate through her body. Amidst the chaos of hurried travelers, she realized that she had shed the parts of herself that lived in the shadows of doubt and fear. Instead, she embraced an emerging sense of self, one emboldened by the act of courageous expression, driven by the hopes and dreams of another. In the days that followed, their scheduled meetings transformed into creative workshops. Emma led brainstorming sessions where they conjured ideas, drafted narratives, and explored character arcs with vigor. Each contribution illuminated their collective process, with Emma discovering a voice that had long been silenced by her own insecurities. With every spirited suggestion, every shared laugh, she realized she no longer hovered at the edges of their creative circle. She stood firmly within it, claiming a place that had been rightfully hers all along. As Mark expressed his vision through the lens of logic and structure, and Lily infused it with vibrant creativity and youthful dreams, Emma found her own passion for storytelling flourishing. Each meeting became richer, each exercise unveiled deeper truths, prompting Emma to reflect on her own childhood passions. She began drawing parallels between Lily's artistic expression and her own buried love for writing. The inkling of courage she had felt on the plane blossomed into a full commitment to share her artistic ambitions with the world. One late afternoon, they gathered in a local park, their workspace transformed by nature's radiance. As they shared their characters and sketches, Emma proposed a pivotal idea to weave their narratives into a cohesive performance. Let's not just tell our stories. Let's show how courage prevails in vulnerability. This could explore the labyrinth of self-discovery we all embark on. She felt the weight of her newfound ambition buoy her spirit, intertwined with the echoes of their earlier conversations. With a shared resolve, they began crafting The Art of Fearless Love. It evolved into a collective tapestry, where their individual fears were stitched together into a resonant narrative. Each character emerged as an embodiment of their struggles, crafted with authenticity and unrelenting honesty. Emma poured herself into her character, a mirror reflecting her internal battles with confidence and her yearning for creative expression. The anticipation for their performance built steadily, fueled by electric energy and an undeniable bond. The night of their debut, they stood together backstage, hearts racing. Testimonies of their struggles and triumphs intermingled with the palpable air of possibility. As they took their positions, Emma's eyes met Mark's and Lily's, and she felt a wave of connection wash over her. The lights dimmed, and with a bold breath, Emma stepped into the spotlight. As the curtain lifted, she transformed into her character, a representation of vulnerability and strength in the face of fear. A symphony of emotions enveloped the stage. The audience bore witness to the rawness of their stories, a collision of laughter and tears, moments of triumph woven against the backdrop of their collective journey. The applause that followed was not just an acknowledgement of performance, it was recognition, confirmation of their evolution. Emma felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. The shadows of her hesitation evaporated against the exuberance of acceptance. She had transcended the limits of her past, held tightly in the cargo of expectation, and emerged as an artist in her own right. As the curtain fell, Mark and Lily enveloped her in an embrace that communicated more than words ever could. They had achieved something extraordinary together, a mutual understanding that extended beyond the stage into the fabric of their lives and identities. Emma had proven to herself that stepping into her fears had birthed authenticity, enabling her to embrace who she was destined to be. With deep satisfaction radiating from within, Emma realized that she had transformed from the shy librarian into a confident storyteller, capable of touching the hearts of others. The journey she had undertaken was no longer one of solitude. It was a testament to connection, mutual growth, and the fearless embrace of vulnerability. This journey had shown all three of them that the act of creation was not a solitary endeavor. They had built bridges over their insecurities and crafted narratives that resonated not only within their own hearts but beyond, inviting others to confront their fears as well. As they emerged from the experience, Emma looked towards the horizon with certainty. Her identity as a librarian had been vital in shaping her knowledge, yet her journey as an artist had unlocked a deeper understanding of self and community. Embrace your fears, she thought, and in so doing, uncover your truest self. And now, as the echoes of the applause faded, it felt as though a new path lay before her, one teeming with potential and the promise of many more stories to tell. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.